Alright, hello, everybody. Welcome to this podcast, a close reading of Matthew. Slow reading through the New Testament, and hopefully the entire Bible. Today it is session 18 now. Coming along pretty well. What is this, 18 sessions? And since past fall when we started this, so making decent progress. We're already well into the Sermon on the Mount, so I would say we're getting somewhere. I'll give just a second to let people get here. I don't know if we'll actually have very many people, and the reason for that is because of the time. I was working on some things, and all of a sudden, my father walks into the room, and he says, "Hey, you're going live tonight, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Okay." And I look down, and it's 9 o'clock, which I usually go live around 8:15. So, lost track of time. Is it 9:25? Yes. Are we still here? Also, yes. I did not want to let the day go by without getting the stream done, because I knew if we didn't do it today, we probably wouldn't do it this week at all, and I really don't want to miss another week. So, here we are. Been doing some other stuff. I actually do have another small YouTube channel. Mostly just stuff for me and some of my friends and my siblings that I've been working on and doing stuff with, and then I also have been planning out a few other projects, like these other videos I want to do on this channel. I do still want to do one talking about the first two Avatar films, especially the first one. Yeah, and we'll see what else kind of comes out of that. Once I start doing essays, I feel like there will be tons of them that I want to do. So I might have to limit myself a little bit because I won't have time to get through them all. But that's okay. So let's begin. We are, last week we talked about kind of the first two of these, I don't know what to call them. It's this, tangent isn't the right word. There's a section of Jesus' message where he starts talking about the law and kind of ways in which the law is being misinterpreted or misused, and he's, going over, okay, you were told this, but this is really how you should be acting. It's more about the heart is kind of the main message of this whole section, and of the whole Sermon on the Mount. And so we looked at the first two of these examples. Last week it was, the first one was talking about murder and how having this deep-seated anger against a brother would be akin to murder in God's eyes, and how you should forgive and ask for forgiveness from other people as soon as possible. And then the second thing we talked about was him talking about adultery and how, lusting after a woman who is not your wife is also adultery. I still want to say adultery, by the way. I just can't do it, though. Like, my brain automatically... Anyways. This is one of those things, by the way, that, like, because I love words, I, especially recently, am really trying... Like, there's certain pronunciations of words and syllables that I love and I want to use, but there's that, deep-seated, hardwired part of me that just instinctually goes for the pronunciations that I'm used to, which are like southern and rural East Coast USA, which are like pretty sorry if I just spiked the mic there, chuckling. Those are pretty non-elegant dialects, to be honest. But Yeah, so that's something that like keeps happening to me, where I want to pronounce a word one way, but I just don't, and it kind of annoys me. Sometimes I can't decide which pronunciation I like more. Anyways, so this week we are talking about. Are you ready? Bump, bump, bump. We are talking about divorce. Wow, so exciting. I know this is what all of you have been waiting for. In all honesty, we're really not talking about it for very long. This honestly felt like a tangent even in Jesus' message. Not like a tangent, but like it's really short compared to all the other ones. Jesus talks about divorce in much more detail at a later point when he's questioned about it in one of the other Gospels, I think. So when we get there, we'll go into more detail. For now, this is just kind of a quick one. And this whole passage, you have to understand it through the lens of the times, right? And through the laws of the Jewish people, right? This is one of those. This is the hard thing. Sometimes God gave laws to the Israelites that were clearly more of a state function than a personal function. What do I mean by this? A lot of them, actually, are laws where the purpose is more so to make sure the nation ran smoothly than because they had, super strong, significant spiritual significance. I mean, they do have spiritual significance, but some examples. Actually, there's two of them that Jesus brings up here soon. This one is divorce. There's the other one, the eye for the eye law. Like that law, for the most part, what it's talking about is like, oh, if someone steals your sheep, you get to go and take one of their sheep back, right? Or they have to pay you double, right? They give you your sheep and then an extra one. Or, oh, they killed your dog, so then now they have to go buy you a dog or buy you 2 dogs or something, so blah, 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 something along those lines. And, like, that makes sense from a legal and state standpoint. And that's more so what the law is talking about than anything else. All of those Jubilee years and things like that, the laws about slaves, you're only allowed to have slaves for 4 years and then they have to go free. All of those are they all like good practices in your life? Do they all make moral sense? Yes. But most of those are just about the state of Israel and less so about like, this is what God wants you from your lives, right? God isn't saying, oh, you can have slaves as long as you only have them for 4 years. That's not really the point he was making. I just went on a super long tangent. Anyways, jumping into this verse. Verse 31, we're in chapter 5 still. It was also said, whoever divorces his wife must give her a written notice of divorce. But I tell you, everyone who divorces his wife, except in a case of sexual immorality, causes her to commit adultery. And whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Okay. Alright. So, what in the world is he talking about in the first place? Because if some people aren't in the know on their Jewish customs and laws and history, they might be talking about, okay, what in the world is this whole, like, divorced wife, written notice of divorce? I mean, that's essentially the way it still works in, like, most modern countries. But this was one of the things God set up, I believe, and that was, like, Jewish custom was, if you wanted to divorce your wife, or technically if she wanted to divorce you, but, like, you're the one who's saying you're divorcing her. Is my music super loud all of a sudden? 1 sec, sorry. No, okay, we're fine. Then you would have to give her a written notice of divorce that would, like, be the notice to the courts or whatever, blah, 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 blah. And the main stipulations God gave for this happening was sexual immorality. So this was mostly like, oh, she sleeps with this person or that person or anybody who's not you, essentially. Then you can do this. And so Jesus here is primarily reinforcing that, because I do not doubt that there were a lot of people who were divorcing their wives under flimsy complaints at best. You know, like, I can't think of some examples, but I'm sure you can I'm sure you can see this happening, because it kind of happens today too. It's a little different today, but the main difference today is that it's more so of like both of them are deciding off of flimsy accusations, when back then it was like just one person was deciding off flimsy accusations, because like it was pretty much just the guy deciding. But it's still the same, to be honest. It's just a difference of circumstances. Like, it's still the same concept of one, and nowadays it's really two sides of the couple aren't satisfied, so they divorce, and that's the story. What Jesus is saying is that unless, in the case of sexual immorality, so unless they're cheating on you or vice versa, then you are not, then when you divorce your wife, you are causing her to commit adultery. So what is he saying? It honestly is quite straightforward. He's making a connection that I think a lot of people probably didn't want to make and try not to make, is that, oh, if you divorce your wife and then she gets married to someone else, that essentially is the same thing as her just committing adultery, right? Just having a sexual relationship with somebody other than her husband, because you're still her original husband. And yeah, so what Jesus is trying to say is that divorce is not a clean slate, like, oh, I just divorced and now we'll pretend that earlier relationship never happened. I think it's Paul who talks about, you're connected when you enter a relationship and you can't break that connection apart. And that goes all the way back to Genesis, right? The man takes the woman and they're now one. That's like, it's one of those things it's ironic that this doesn't, it's ironic because I think now that's more evident than ever. Like, the amount of damage that comes from divorce in modern society should kind of prove that point, if that makes sense, to both partners and to any children involved. Sorry, I gotta take a sip of this water. So the one issue a lot of people might have with this whole thing is like, why is it just the woman who's committing adultery, isn't the guy committing adultery? I have two rebuttals to that. First one is that, yeah, the guy is also probably committing adultery. I don't see why it wouldn't be. Secondly, though, and this is more important, it doesn't matter because there are passages in the New Testament that talk about if you are committing a brother or sister to stumble, to sin, right? If you're the one pushing them to do that or helping them do that, then you are like also guilty. Like, that's even worse almost than just you sinning yourself, is if you get somebody else to sin. And that's literally what he said is happening here, right? If you divorce your wife, you're making her sin, essentially, is what he's saying. And like, that's not good. Okay, that's actually horrible. I think it's James is one of the people who talks about this. Peter might as well, in like 1st or 2nd Peter, maybe. Don't quote me on that. So those would be my two points there. And then the last one is probably the one that is the most squishy. Whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. The reason why, you could very easily make the argument that how is this the fault of the person who's marrying the divorced woman? right? Like, how are they getting lumped into this? I guess the main takeaways I would have with this, number one, he's just, like, divorce is just not good, and he's, like, really making sure that point is driven home. Number two, a lot of time back then, to imagine when people living more close by, I'm trying to figure out how to say this. I don't know. There's really not much to say or explain. Like, it's just one of those things that you just kind of have to accept. Even if you don't necessarily agree with it, you know, like on face value. I guess I would say, like, by marrying a divorced woman, you're almost indirectly, like... See, you're not, though. Like, this is that thing where, like, I do get why... You're almost indirectly saying you promote divorce or, like, are okay with it, right? And then there's also, like, were you perhaps part of the reason that they got divorced in the first place? It just is, it's complicated. I don't have too much to say on it right now, and there's another passages later on that talk about this in way more detail, so we'll wait till those. Anyways, moving on, this is the bigger passage of the day, and the more interesting one, and the longer and more detailed one. So let's begin. Again, you have heard that it was said to our ancestors, you must not break your oath, but you must keep your oaths to the Lord. Sorry. My nose is suddenly stuffy. Actually, real quick, one thing. It was also said, I find the difference here a little interesting. That one is just, it was also said, and this one is, again, you have heard that it was said to our ancestors. Okay, no, it's the same. The was is the same. If it was instead, it is also said, then that would be something different. But that wouldn't be saying, oh, you know, God also gave this law to the Israelites. That would be like, nowadays you people are always saying, you know, you have to give your wife a written notice of divorce. I was wrong. So just don't worry about the last 40 seconds of this that I said. Moving on. Okay. So, another of God's laws. You must not break your oath, but you must keep your oaths to the Lord. Okay. This is a big law, and the crux, I can never figure out how to pronounce that word, but I want to use it all the time. So, somebody help me figure out how to pronounce that word. The crux of the matter, I think that's how you say it. The crux of the matter is that, taking an oath on the Lord was... Right, breaking an oath that you made to the Lord, like that was maximum heresy, right? A straight up sin, something God had said, you know, don't say the Lord's name in vain, right? One of the 10 Commandments is really that, essentially. That's, you know, one of the things under that. Don't take an oath to the Lord and not keep it. What was happening is that people, the Pharisees and other people, would make oaths to other things, you know, like, oh, I swear by heaven, or I swear by Jerusalem, or I swear by the high priest's cane, or whatever else. That might sound familiar, because it's kind of a sort of thing that happens even today. Less so today, but definitely, like, in the past, more recently has happened, you know. I feel like, maybe I'm wrong, but this feels like it could be something that started to happen in the Catholic Church. I'm not sure why this feels really familiar to me, but it does. Like, that this has happened recently where people would swear by a bunch of things, like, vaguely religious, but they wouldn't swear by God, because, you know, that's a no-no. And the point Jesus is making is that, don't take an oath at all, because they're all gods, essentially, and everything that God has created, or God is in, is holy. by extension, and so any oath you're taking is a holy oath to God, essentially, right? You know, don't swear by heaven because that's God's throne, or by the earth because that's God's footstool, or by Jerusalem because that's the city of God's great king. You see what I'm saying? And it, like, all of it comes back to God eventually. And I think it also is a larger point under all this rhetoric is just don't take oaths, because if you break them, right, you're not supposed to break your oaths, period, is what he's saying. So the first point he's making, right, number one, taking an oath to basically anything is basically taking an oath to God, because it's all God's in the end, right? So don't try to squeeze your way out of it by just saying, oh, I swear to Jerusalem. That's, like, just as bad. Secondly, his second point is don't take an oath you don't have control over, right? Neither should you swear by your head, because you cannot make a single hair white or black. He's saying, you know, why are you swearing by your head that, like, you don't even own and you don't even control? Like, God could just destroy that head right now if he wanted to. Why are you swearing by that? Right? All of that hair, you don't have control over that. That's kind of a second point. And so he sums it up best, but let your word yes be yes and your no be no. He's saying what you do have control on is your yeses and your nos. What you do have control on is you. So when you say yes, it's yes, and when you say no, it should be no, and you shouldn't need any more than that to convince people. If you do, then you're probably not doing a very good job of living a Christ-like example. Yeah. And the final point is interesting. Anything more than this is from the evil one. He doesn't say that it's necessarily a sin. Why do I bring this up? I just think it's an important note, like a important little pinpoint. I don't think Jesus is saying swearing by anything is a sin. I do think he's saying, though, swearing is probably a bad idea, and it's going to get you in trouble, and it's not from God, so why are you doing it? That's kind of where I'm going with this. A similar sort of vibe to, like, when Paul says, you know, I mean, if you want to drink, you can, but is it going to make you sin? Probably. So, you know, like, if you want to, you could go for it, but, you know, that's you, man, you know, and it's that kind of the same vibe here, I think. I do think Jesus is being a lot stronger than that. Like, I think he definitely doesn't, like, he's, swearing is evil. I don't know. He doesn't necessarily say swearing is evil. He just says from the evil one. But by extension, anything that the evil one creates is evil, per, I think, James that talks about that. So, it all kind of goes around and comes around, and you could get into a deep theological debate about whether or not swearing is inherently a sin. My answer would still be no. I don't think it's a sin, but, like, it's probably not a good idea, because breaking your oath is a sin, so there's that, you know. And by the way, all of this talk of swearing, this is all oaths, right? And you might be saying, okay, we don't really take oaths today. We do, actually. We do still take oaths. It's more rare, but, like, we still do. Trying to think of some examples now. I mean, some more, like, lofty examples. We still take oaths, you know, under certain circumstances, right? Like in court, places like that. A lot of the time in today's culture, it's less of a I swear by something, and more so I just swear, like, by myself, like, I promise, right? You know, this will happen, like, all the time, you know, where it'll be like, do you promise that you did this, this, and this, and that you're going to do this, this, and this, and, you know, basically any government file you ever have to fill out, it'll ask you 1,000,001 times, You know, did you read this? Do you promise? Do you promise a second time? There's also just any time you say, you know, I'll promise I'll do this or this, right? And so I think the issue more so in modern culture is not as much swearing on something, right? Taking an oath to try to make your point seem stronger or like prove that you're serious. We don't do that very often. Occasionally you'll hear somebody say, you know, like, I swear, but then they won't even say by what. Or like maybe you'll hear somebody say like I swear by God or something like that. Usually they don't even mean it really. They're just saying it as a rhetorical phrase, which, you know, in and of itself is not a good thing as well. But it's one of those interesting like artifacts that has been lost to time kind of, is oaths. We just don't take them much anymore, which is something I do find kind of fascinating. My guess would be that it is primarily because of the what's it called? What is the Reformation church movement? Whatever the other word is for that church. And that. Oh, why can't I think of like all of the churches? You know, like Church of Christ and Baptist and all of those are one kind of church, and I can't remember what the name is. But anyways, I think it's probably primarily because of that movement and this verse, and they're like, why are we taking oaths? That's not a good thing. And so then everybody's like, okay, no more oaths. Instead, the issue now is just that we say things and don't deliver. We say that we're going to do something, and then we don't. I feel like we're going a little off the track of the verse, because it doesn't talk about this too much. But let your yes be yes and your no be no. I would say, if you tell someone that you're going to do something, and you plan to not do that, that is an inherent sin, because it's just a lie and you're breaking your word. If you tell someone you're going to do something, and then circumstances arise and you don't get to do it, it gets fishy, and I'll kind of leave it up to you, right? We'll see as we go if we get any more concrete evidence. I will say this. I think in today's world, we're a little too casual with letting other things take priority and influence our yeses and nos, when realistically we could still deliver on our word if we wanted to. Like, I'm just trying to think of an example. Like, whatever, you say you'll be able to help somebody on Monday or something. You know, I'll help you work in your yard, and then it's like, oh, I actually checked my schedule and sorry, I actually sorry, I lost my train of thought. I actually checked my schedule and I have to pick up my son from a basketball game around that time on Monday, so I can't help you. Okay, is this... My point is that you really could, if you wanted to, ask somebody else to pick up your son. I am like 75% confident that if you really tried, somebody else would probably be able to pick up your son from basketball. By the way, I'm just berating this made up person. Like, this isn't a real example at all, okay? But, like, I'm just using this as an example, so sorry to this person who isn't picking up their son. Like, you probably could get somebody else to do it. I would... Right? And I think a lot of the time we just use other things that happen in our life and say, oh, I guess I don't have to go help that person anymore. Oh, well, you know, oh, so sad. I guess I can sit home and relax now. You see what I mean? And I think that is whenever I see or hear about someone who doesn't take that easy out, right, and they say, no, I'm still going to be there. A really good example, one of the students from our youth group, he would work a a lot of Saturdays, like during the fair and stuff, and he would be up all night, like 2 or 3 days in a row, have like almost no hours of sleep, and he would still be there at youth group and Sunday school. You know what I mean? And it's that kind of thing. Like when somebody does something like that, you say, okay, they really care about this, or they care about me, or they actually want to be there. They're committing to things that they care about. They're staying true to their word, right? And so I would say that would be my challenge from this whole section, that like in today's world, make your yes yes. Don't take the easy option out. Like, really put all your effort into making sure what you said you're going to do. And, you know, this, it's hard because in today's world, because we have social interaction so much more frequently with people than we might have in past days, and because a lot of the time we're farther away and thinking farther in advance than we did in the past, it's a lot more difficult than it might have been back then. You know, there are probably like 3 or 4 times within a day when I tell someone, hey, yeah, I'll do this in 30 minutes, or I can hang out in a couple hours, or yeah, just let me know when you're ready and I'll be good to go. And then I don't deliver on those, right? Like that. And it's just, I think there's a point where some of those things you're not, this is why I would say a lot of the time being not super committal with a lot of those kind of things is okay. Like just saying, you know, I'll try to get on or something like that, or and I would just say when it's something like that of such small significance, I don't really think anybody is just thinking that, oh my goodness, oh my, you know, he just lied to me, he just broke his word. I don't think it's a sin, because it's just, you know, something, it's literally a couple seconds difference, right? And sometimes it'll literally be like, just earlier today we were talking, I was like, yeah, I can probably get on in 30 minutes, and my friend's like, okay, I'll get on right now, and he's like, actually, you know, I have something else I have to do first. That's okay. Like we all are okay with that, because it would have been different if he had said, you know, yeah, in 2 weeks we'll see each other, and then in 2 weeks he's like, oh, I forgot to tell you, I'm actually on vacation. You know what I mean? Like, that would be completely different. So I would just say that, like, context matters. You have to understand that, like, there's a basic leniency with just every sentence you take isn't instantly taken out of context. Like, oh, he said it. You know, he said he would do this, and he didn't do it. I mean, like, sometimes you just say you'll do something, and then 3 seconds later you realize that you actually have something else to do, and you say, oh, sorry, I actually can't do that. We'll do it some other time, right? And that's fine. I do think, though, that it is wise to just not promise to do things unless you're confident you're going to be able to do them, for the most part. And I think that's kind of something we may have lost as a culture a little bit, is like we're a little too straightforward sometimes, maybe. That'll be it for this session. I don't know if we actually had anybody on live, but that's okay. I knew it was going to be later. This one was mostly just, I just wanted to get the episode done, and so we could get to next week. I don't want to stall out. Do be on the lookout for some of those video essays. I don't know how long they'll take. It could be anywhere from like this week to like 2 months from now, to be honest. But they'll be out eventually, so keep an eye out. Yeah. Until then, I will see you all next week. Easter was yesterday. I almost forgot Easter was yesterday. Happy belated Easter, everybody. The flowers are finally growing on the trees outside our house, some of them, and I'm like so happy. But it was cold today. Why was it cold? I don't know. Sorry if I just yelled in my mic.